We have a very special guest here with us today, Jeff Archer, who is a fashion designer of the Canadian-based label Nova Chew. Hi Jeff, thank you for being here with us today.
No problem.
So I know you have some experience working and traveling in China. Could you tell us about your experiences? Why did you choose to travel to and live in China?
Well, at the time, I believe it was 2012, my dad just got transferred over to Shanghai, and my wife's parents are also from China, so my wife being Chinese, thought it would be a good time to go back there, see the country from like a local's perspective. I got married there too, so we saw the whole, like, you know, traditional red attire
the wedding,
that we would wear, the wedding attire that we would wear. So it was so cool.
So do you personally know a lot about Chinese culture?
Before I knew her, we always knew about Chinese New Year was a big deal, right? They didn't talk about it here in the West. There was festivals though I didn't know, like Mid-Autumn Festival, a lot to do with moon cakes and like full moons. And then there's tomb sweeping, a tomb sweeping holiday, which is like really foreign to us. And then Chinese New Year though over there, it was incredible basically with the amount of fireworks. It just didn't stop for like 2 weeks. I was kind of happy it was over. But it was really cool.
You are a fashion designer by trade, and what are your thoughts on Chinese fashion and trends?
So when I was over in China, I noticed that there wasn't really direct style over there. It was more just like people wore clothes and they wore what was ever comfortable. Mostly I noticed that once there was a trend, they would just kill this trend. Everyone would wear that trend. So it's not too different than the West, right?
And how has Chinese culture influenced Western fashion design?
When I look at high-end brands like Armani, Privé, and Gucci, all these brands use Chinese elements basically in their clothes. I think it was a 2015 collection for Armani Privé, and they were really into like the plants and like the bamboo. So they had a lot of this in their collection. Gucci used a lot of like dragon details in like these men's suits that they were doing in 2017. So I think with high-end brands, they went into the Chinese like, cultural elements a lot.
How has Chinese culture influenced your own fashion designs?
When it comes to my own designs, I take influence from like Mandarin collars and like qipao dresses, which is like, they got high slits on both sides. They have closures, it's like a shoulder closure, and these buttons, these decorative buttons that they use. So I like to try to use some of that in my own design. Because I like a lot of color in my clothing, I noticed that the ethnic groups in Yunnan, especially the Miao ethnic group, using all these really cool colors. So I try to like take that as an influence, as well as the Nova Chew brand. We also took a look at this and really took this inspiration and really ran with it.
What are your thoughts on the Chinese embroidery, such as Suzhou embroidery, Miao embroidery, and ethnic clothing?
Okay, so I noticed that the embroidery techniques that they had in China, or they have in China, have been around for like thousands of years, right? And Suzhou embroidery, which is this very old embroidery using silk thread, basically, that is like a double-sided embroidery that is super cool. The front and the back are basically the same, right? They're just as good as each other. They can be used as like a room divider. So if it's like in a piece of glass, you look at one side, it's displaying like certain, fish or animals or whatever. You go to the other side, and it's just as cool, and it's like the opposite, right? So it's like the opposite threads, and it's displaying, same thing but different characters. So I think the Suzhou embroidery is super cool. Miao embroidery, very colorful. Me and Nova were really inspired on this embroidery. We took a lot of influence from it in our own collections. She did so good with this collection that she did, because she kind of like showed, at least London, what these ethnic groups are about and how colorful they are and how much embroidery and how much detail and like is put into it. So I definitely think that the world needs to see more of Chinese embroidery and Chinese ethnic groups.
So I don't know if you know much about the fashion of Chinese leaders, but what are your thoughts on them?
With men usually just wear suits, right? But when it comes to females, I noticed that the first lady of China, Peng Liyuan, she would be wearing like kind of like these local Chinese brands such as like Ma Ke and Wu Yong, and I found that through her like promoting or endorsing these brands, she was able to like elevate these brands on like a global fashion, like the
Yeah.
global fashion community, which I think was really good for establishing that the high-end fashion that is going to be coming out of China now and into the future. And then we'll see more of it obviously the next like 10 to 15 years, I believe, on a
Yeah.
global level.
So as the world is getting more and more globalized, what are your opinions on China's increase in global influence?
I definitely see a lot of global influence through Chinese technology brands. I think the technology sector in China is starting to become quite a world leader when it comes to just innovativeness and quality. You know, brands like Huawei, Xiaomi, Hisense, Haier, TCL, Konka. The Chinese brands are really like stepping up. And I can see that over the next 10 years that they can be global players for sure.
If you were to use adjectives to describe China to them, what adjectives would you use?
I would definitely say mesmerizing would be the number one. Very historic, but yet also very futuristic at the same time. So like cities like Shanghai, Beijing, Guangzhou. But then like when you go and travel into like the farmland, you see a lot of really old historic buildings. The China that you would imagine what it looked like in the movies. So.
Do you have any future projects you're working on with Nova Chu?
Well, me and Nova were working on a new collection. A lot of it has to do with weaving. So we're working on a lot of intricate weaving and all types of like threads and fabrics that we're going to try to put through these weaves.
Well, we're looking forward to your new
Thank you
project.
so much. I appreciate
Thank you.
everything.